Hello, and welcome back to my studio. I'm so happy that you're with us today and talking all about charcoal. I have a little demo set up that I'm going to be working on. That's kind of a continuance of what we talked about last week of transferring an image onto canvas. In this case, it's onto paper. So I am so excited to talk to you more about charcoal. You guys had some great questions last time. As always, if you have any questions while I'm talking, while I'm demonstrating, please feel free to go ahead and type those in, and I will answer as I can throughout the demo. So please feel free to download the PDF as well that is attached with this live stream. That has a lot of information about the different types of charcoals that I'm going to be using today that do 99% of the work that I do when I work with charcoal. There are other options out there, but these ones are my workhorses, and hopefully I'll give you a good demonstration as to why I use those the most. So yeah, please, again, feel free to ask your questions. I am here for you, obviously. So let's get to it. Okay, so over here, I have this picture of my son that I took a few years ago. I loved it so much, and I've always been wanting to do something with it in terms of painting, drawing, whatever. And I tried a painting, it didn't work, so I am going to go for a drawing, and it's already working so much better. So what I did is I took it into Photoshop and I blew it up right here. I'll pull that up so you can see it a bit better. I made it bigger and I upped the contrast just a little bit so that I could see these lines. And then, like I did last time with the drawing that I had transferred onto canvas, I did the same thing. I put charcoal on the back, put it on my paper, and just traced with that red pen. So it's all ready to go. I do keep this on hand just so that if I need to refer back to it, like, oh, what was this line in here? What was going on? Then I can see exactly what it was that I was referencing for any areas that I'm not 100% sure or 100% confident in. And then, of course, I have my reference photo here so that I can keep going back to that and get that feeling, that luminosity, etc., that I had been wanting to get in the beginning. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about the supplies. Right now, I'm working on some watercolor paper that I have prepared with rabbit skin glue. This is a time-consuming process. I do not recommend it to most people, but it tends to come out with a really nice surface for a lot of different applications. This is what I had on hand, and so that's why I'm using it. But you can also use watercolor paper. This is Artistico by Fabriano that I have hand toned. It's also a pretty nice surface for charcoal. You don't have to hand tone it, but this one I did because I wanted a certain look for it. Watercolor paper, especially the Fabriano Artistico, is very common, easy to come by. This paper is by Hahnemühle. It's called Eng paper. That's spelled Ingres. And if you type Eng into your browser, Eng paper, Ingres again, it will just come up and you can get that pretty easily. That paper is preferred for the reasons that it was the closest to the 19th century paper that we have today. I don't know exactly what they're working on back then, but they did some amazing, excellent work. And so the ink paper is kind of the closest that we have today. So a lot of people will kind of gravitate toward that because it does produce a really nice surface for drawing with charcoal. But back to our demo. Like I said, I am working on watercolor paper, but it is prepared with rabbit skin glue. It just has a little bit of grit to it that will hold that charcoal in. And that's ultimately what you're wanting. You don't want too much texture for your paper because then you just have to kind of knock down that texture while you fill in the holes with the charcoal, but you don't want it too slick and smooth because then the charcoal will just slide right off. So when you're looking for papers, I know that there are papers out there that are specifically made for charcoal, but a lot of them are really, really textured. And so you don't really want that because you're going to just have a bunch of white showing through your piece that you will have to kind of go back in and fight with. So you can see that I have started this drawing. In the PDF download, I talk about the two different charcoals that I'm using. This one is called Willow Charcoal, and you can see it's kind of misshapen, it's round. It has a core in the middle that you can maybe see there. Try that, there we go. This is made from willow branches. It's very, very delicate, but what it does is lay down a lot of value very, very quickly. So if you have big areas that you need to fill, like this, it's going to lay that down pretty quickly. But the drawback is that it will be removed very, very quickly. So you don't want to touch it too much. Once it's on, you just kind of want to leave it there. The other drawback is it doesn't really layer too much. I don't know if you can see, but right here, it kind of pulls up what was underneath and then lays down. So, it's kind of this fight back and forth with the willow, but it's very cheap. It's very readily available. And it's, can cover a surface very quickly. So it's a good charcoal to have, but I do prefer my vine charcoal, which is made from grapevines. This particular brand is called Nitrum, and it comes in 3 different hardnesses. In the PDF download, I show a little demonstration of those harnesses. It's B, HB, and H. And just like with pencils, the B is the softest, and then HB is a little harder, and then H is the hardest. That being said, you will find some hard spots within the B and some soft spots within the H. It's not a foolproof thing, but on the whole, the Nitrum especially is a very good, consistent charcoal to work with. The other great thing about this charcoal is that you can see, just a sec, I have too many tools in my hand now, that I have this point on it that I have whittled down, that I have just sandpapered down with this sandpaper block. Super easy to get that point. That way it feels more like a pencil, kind of more what you're used to using anyway. And, it's just easier to kind of get adapted to charcoal when you have something that you can hold on to that feels better. You can see that it's a little hard of a soft, this is supposed to be the soft charcoal, but anyway, that's okay. It's a little hard too. Anyway, so charcoal is a lot of layering. A lot of the most beautiful pictures that you've seen done in charcoal, it's a lot of kind of back and forth with the charcoal and your eraser. Obviously, charcoal is pretty much black, right? And the way that you get the more subtle gray tones in here is you have to kind of come back with your eraser. This is a kneaded eraser, by the way, that I've just made into a point, and then I can very delicately come back and get some differing values in there. And then come back and build it back up. So that's how you get the subtlety in your changing tones and values. And that's what I've done in here. You can see that I've started up here and I'm moving down. I kind of wanted to show you where I'm going in this first step. And then I'm going to show you how I got there. Another tool I want to talk to you about pretty briefly is this fan brush. It's awesome to just quickly kind of wipe away excess charcoal that you don't need. That, as you can see right down here, that excess charcoal will kind of fall down onto your page. And if you're not careful and don't clean it up, then it can make your work look kind of dirty. So that's why I kind of knock back any excess charcoal with my fan brush, just super quick, especially in that initial layer, so that as I move on through the piece, I don't have all of these little specks of fallen charcoal dust on my page. Okay, so let's get going. If I'm looking at, say, this arm right through here, I squint down and I can see just how close of a value this whole area is to the background. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay down an overall value, which I've kind of done already, but I'm going to kind of deepen that. And the lines that I've done for the transfer, they're more guidelines than something that I'm really trying to hold on to, because ultimately I'm going to lose them anyway, and I want to be able to just draw this thing instead of be worried about keeping lines that I ultimately don't want to keep anyway, because if I do, I'm probably going to be drawing around them, and that defeats the whole point of, kind of turning a form and not having an outline and something that goes into the atmosphere. So I'm just building up. And with little effort, you can see that I can turn this arm into the background. And that shift is so subtle. I hope that it's getting picked up on there. It looks like it is. Okay. Charcoal is kind of an in-between between pencil and painting. So pencil, obviously you're using a point of graphite, and you have to kind of be more kind of linear in thinking. And with paint, you use a wider brush and you think more mass, right? The same thing with charcoal is that you can think more mass very easily, but then when it gets down to it, you can think more linearly and get into kind of that really fine detail with a sharp point. I always, when I get a dull point, I come back, sharpen it up real quick. Be careful because these are delicate, they will break. And then when they do break, you kind of give a little sigh because they're not the cheapest thing in the world, but it is what it is. That's why I have this extender. This one broke on me yesterday. And so this just extends that life so that I can have, more of a distance between me and my piece. So I'm not kind of all the way up close next to it, because that will kind of get me sucked in, too in love with an area instead of moving around the piece and developing it all as a whole. So we can keep going. I'm kind of preserving these lighter areas for now. I don't want to get too much value on them yet. When we lay down the charcoal, there's always a chance that it's going to stain the paper if we need to take out whatever value we have put down. So I want to avoid putting down as much charcoal as possible in areas that I know I really don't want a whole lot. And then those areas, I'll come back with my hard H charcoal, and it will be a lot more subtle way to get down. I can demo that right now. You see how much less charcoal is laid down with my H. And that way I can just be a lot more subtle as these forms turn into that light. And I don't have that stained paper to contend with I just have that luminosity of the white paper, which is ultimately what I want for this piece. Okay, looks like we have a question from Jamie. Jamie asks, what subjects are best for charcoal drawing? I'm a beginner. You know what, kind of anything. The way that I learned charcoal was I did figure drawings, I did portrait drawings, and I did cast drawings. Cast drawings are great because you have an object that is white that you are finding the full value range of white to black with, so that you can turn forms from light into black, which is kind of the same thing here. The only difference here is that I'm contending with color, and with a cast, you don't have color to contend with. So I do recommend, if you can find a cast drawing course, that you sign up for that, and you will be really rewarded with understanding of how to turn form, how to handle the medium, and how to think more in mass than in line. The drawback with casts is that they take a long time to draw, and they're somewhat monotonous. So ultimately, do what you can, Jamie. Find something. I would find something that has a full value range. Probably not landscape. That's a lot of subtle transitions. Something a bit more isolated with one light source that kind of goes into black, and you can kind of develop from there. Okay, Henry is asking, I find it difficult not to focus on the details and the lines rather than the contrast. I need to work on this. Yes, that is a very common, very, very common thing, Henry. My biggest suggestion and advice is to squint. At every single step, at every single stroke, squint down. That will blur out all of those fine details, and you'll be able to just focus on those big masses. If you lose those big masses, those are that's your underlying architecture of the whole drawing. And so if you lose that, then the whole drawing really has the potential to fall apart very, very easily. And so if you find yourself feeling lost, I guess, in your drawing, then squint down and unify. I still do it a lot. I just find myself every once in a while feeling a little overwhelmed by whatever it is I'm working on. And that is my clue that I'm getting ahead of myself and I'm losing the drawing. So I need to regain control of the drawing. So I step back, I squint down, and I see where my major masses are, and if mine are holding together on my drawing, and then I can kind of go from there. But I squint throughout the whole process. Another tool is, of course, my maul stick here. That just keeps my hand off of the page, so I'm not smearing the charcoal. You can see this charcoal dust that is coming down as I work. And so ultimately, I can blow it away, but I will have to come back with my kneaded eraser and pick that up in any areas that I don't want charcoal. I was thinking for this particular drawing, once I get it farther along, of silver leafing this moon. I thought that would be kind of cool. My original plan was to paint it and then have a silver leaf moon, but it just never worked out. It was never quite the painting that I wanted it to be. So I set it aside, and now I'm going to try drawing it. kind of knock some of that charcoal down, get it into that paper a little bit in these areas that I don't want that texture of the paper to show through. I had a teacher once come by while I was in the academy and critique me, and I was trying very desperately to get like an outline that I had found in my figure drawing, and she was like, why don't you just kind of go over that and lose that edge? And I was so distraught. She's like, you found it once, you can find it again. And that kind of stuck with me. I was still not willing to heed her advice. I still fought for that edge. But when I did a few more drawings, I realized that she was absolutely right. I found it once, I can find it again, but I can find it again better because I have better context for where that edge or that value or etc. goes. I hope that makes sense. But as I put more information down in the right context, then I have more context to get things more accurate. So you can see the little knee here. Hopefully there's not glare there. It's rounded right into that background, especially when I squint down. But if I have my eyes wide open, I can still see that tiny, tiny edge, right? So I want to lose it, but I also want it to be there ultimately. I don't want to completely lose it. So what I'm going to do is put down some value, pull it back just a little bit with a harder charcoal. That harder charcoal will knock down any excess charcoal that's on there, and then I can come back to the outer edge and darken it. Okay, Jamie asks, where do you get that charcoal piece extender and the fan brush? Just a regular painting fan brush. Yes, it is. It is just a regular painting fan brush. I have no idea where it came from. I got it so long ago, but it's a bristle brush, and it's just really great. There is nothing special about this brush other than, I've had it forever, honestly. Yeah, so I prefer the bristle brush. It tends to sweep away the amount of charcoal that I want. It's not too soft. It's not too firm. And so that's all that is. It's just a painting brush. And then the charcoal extender, you can look for pencil extenders online at the art store, whatever. This is technically for pencils, but it fits the charcoal in there pretty nicely. There are different ones on the Nitram charcoal website. Again, that's NITRAM. They have some extenders now, I know, that are pretty nice, that are made specifically for this charcoal. But I don't work with charcoal a whole lot anymore, so I haven't needed to get those extenders. But yeah, these are readily available pretty much anywhere. Good question. You can see that I'm not getting too caught up in this area. I felt like I was getting a little too invested here, so I'm moving over here to kind of reset my eye and my concentration on the whole. Felicity asks, is charcoal forgiving? I'm wanting to expand my work, but do get discouraged. Yeah, charcoal is an awesome medium. It's so it's so forgiving once you learn kind of your way around it. It, like I said, it can act more like a paint in that you have to think more mass, but it's a dry medium, so you don't have to wait for it to dry. You just get to kind of go at it, and then once you figure out kind of how to knock it back with your brush or your eraser, and how to preserve your lighter areas, then yeah, it's really forgiving and it's so much fun to work with. It's so fast. It's so much faster than a pencil if that's what you're used to working with. Um, it's kind of the same with pastels. I don't have a whole lot of pastel experience, but it's the same idea, that pastel is far more closer to painting than drawing, and for the same reasons. You have to think more mass. You have to think just in a way that pencil and those kind of finer media just don't allow for. But you can still get some really nice crisp lines and edges, and it's a really ethereal, really awesome medium. And if you get some time to kind of just Google any sort of drawings done by charcoal, you'll see just how versatile it is. So yeah, give it a go. Charcoal is awesome. I really kind of miss working with charcoal as much, because I just paint a whole lot more these days. Um, that's more of a moneymaker than drawings, and so I just don't draw as much anymore. But it really is a great exercise and kind of reset and refresher. So yeah, I do recommend giving it a go, but be patient with yourself. If you are easily discouraged, find a class that you can take. Find someone who can kind of pull you in and mentor you, um, take you through the basics so that you don't get discouraged as easily. I constantly got discouraged as I was learning. There is a learning curve, of course, but don't get discouraged to the point that you give up. That's the key, right? It's okay to get discouraged. It's okay to get frustrated. Just don't give up. So yeah, that's my suggestion, Felicity. And then of course I'm always here if you have any questions. Just reach out to me, and I'm more than willing to give you any sort of advice or encouragement. I have had so many pep talks through my career from my mentor. And to this day, he gives me pep talks all the time. So I totally and completely understand the discouragement factor, but you just got to keep going. That's all it comes down to. Just kind of unifying some areas. Vine charcoal layers really nicely, a lot better than willow charcoal, which is why I do a lot of my work with vine. It really is just an all-around great charcoal to work with. So if you can get some nitrum charcoal, I do recommend it. They are the best of the best in terms of charcoal, which most people don't think about. Who cares what kind of charcoal you use? It's just charcoal, but it really is a really, really nice charcoal to work with. You can see I'm always kind of referring back Unfortunately, I'm left-handed, so I have to kind of lift up my hand to see what exactly is going on. But I'm always referring back to my reference photo to kind of see where I'm going. And I'm squinting down at my reference photo to see how these edges meet, how much of the shoulder can I see against that background, so that I know as I bring my charcoal over here, how far I can push this value down. The other thing that I'm keeping in mind is that I'm not at my blackest black yet. This is going to be black, right, on my page, but I'm not there yet. I'm kind of at a middle tone black. So if I have my value scale that is broken up from black, 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 all the way up to white, I'm kind of in this middle bit right here. So once I get my drawing down and kind of set, then I'm going to add my darkest notes in so that I can kind of reestablish my whole value system. But like I said, the paper will stain if there's too much charcoal on there. And so I don't want to be adding more charcoal than is absolutely necessary at any given moment, so that if I do need to take some charcoal off, that I don't have to contend with stained paper that will ultimately kind of mess up my value perception. So I'm thinking about how this form is turning into the light here and the soft, soft transition. I mean, obviously babies are very, very soft anyway. And so I need to kind of be really aware of the subtle, subtle transition right through here that is going to occur. So I'm pulling out my H, kind of going over it real quick. And then I'll come back with my kneaded eraser. And if I don't want as much charcoal to come off as it is, then I'll pull up a little bit of dirty charcoal on my kneaded eraser, and that will limit how much is coming up off the paper. So I can be more subtle in how much value I pull up with my eraser. And then again, if I want to bring it back to something that will pull up more charcoal, then I just find a clean spot on my eraser, get that point again. Good to go. So it's a lot of back and forth, back and forth. The most subtle drawings and paintings that you see are back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, just working it and reworking it and reworking it and reworking it until it gets to that perfect balance of light and dark and transition and subtlety and form and atmosphere, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's just always, always back and forth. And that's where a lot of people kind of give up. I can't do this. Well, you can, you just haven't allowed the process to fully realize itself, to kind of go through the motions of that back and forth. You go a little too far this way, so I need to bring it back the other way. And then I go a little too far the other way, so I need to bring it back to the first way. So be very, very patient with yourself. Everyone does this back and forth dance with their work. So just be aware that, no one gets it on the first go. as long as I've been drawing and painting, I still fight with my drawings and paintings constantly. I know that this is still feeling a little messy, and that's totally okay, because it's just part of the process of refining and refining and refining and refining until you find that beautiful, beautiful subtlety. Charcoal does have a tendency to kind of get messy and get away from people. That's ultimately when you have to take a step back, squint down, and say, am I losing my drawing? And more than likely, yeah, that's what's happening, is that you're losing those foundational elements that are your drawing. The form, the terminator line, all of the, gesture, proportion, etc. If those foundational lines aren't working for you and you're losing them, then you're losing control of the drawing in general. And that's where a lot of people get frustrated and, say, oh, I can't draw. Well, you can. You're just losing the drawing at the moment, and that's okay. Like I said, it happens to everyone. It still happens to me so much. But you just have to take a step back and reassess. Okay, Henry is asking, how do you protect a finished charcoal drawing? The best way to protect a finished charcoal drawing is to frame it. Some people do use a spray called fixative that they'll spray over the drawing. I don't personally, because I have seen, unfortunately, drawings that will get like completely blown away of their last like 5 layers that people have built up with the aerosol spray. And so as soon as I can, I'll just get it behind glass and that will take care of it. But you can spray it, and people have very successfully. It's just not something that I prefer to do. And fixative is readily available in art stores. So yeah, that's an option. Kind of lost his shoulder here, so I'm gonna find it again super quick. So I also keep all of my working charcoals and tools just in my hands at all times, so I can quickly go between each one, whenever I need to. So you can obviously have them down on your easel tray, but that's not how I work. I'm a little too lazy to put it down and pick it up and put it down, pick it up. I just keep them all right there at hand. Now, some of these fine details through here, you're just going to want to be maybe a little bit more careful because I have a terminator line right next to an area that's going to be pretty bright. So I'm going to be a little bit more careful and, kind of more careful. More careful about getting the outline here, so that I don't have to go back and forth. This is a very particular shape through here, and I want to make sure that I get those toes accurate. So I'm just, kind of being careful about that particular shape and not being more general, which again is the awesome thing about charcoal, is that it can act like more of a paint in mass or more as a pencil in line. And then I'm also thinking about how these are turning into that light. So I don't want to have an outline. I want it to be a form. Unify that area real quick. I hope this is helpful, that it's kind of giving you some insights as to how to work with charcoal. A lot of people tend to think of charcoal as a very dirty medium, but it doesn't have to be. Of course, I'm getting a little charcoal on my hands. You can kind of see, especially through there. But I'm not getting it on my clothes. I'm not getting it too much on the easel itself. There will be a little charcoal dust on my tray from the fallen charcoal that will need to be cleaned up eventually. But on the whole, it doesn't have to be this wildly messy medium if you can control it properly. So that's ultimately what I'm doing, is I'm very much in control of my materials. Same thing with paint. I know a lot of people think of like artists as this kind of messy, wearing a messy paint covered smock and whatever. But it doesn't have to be if you don't let it be that messy mess that unfortunately is pretty that's a stereotypical when you think of an artist. I wear just my everyday clothes to paint in, and it's very, very rare that I get any paint on my clothes. Some people like to use blending stumps. You absolutely can with this process. I tend to not use blending stumps, but it's a very good tool for people that use it very conservatively. That's the problem with the blending stump. And if you don't know what it is, it's paper that's wound up really, really tightly. and then it's ground down to a point, and it works to kind of blend out your dry mediums, so charcoal or pencil or whatever. I don't tend to use them just because it's really easy to overuse them, and so any drawing can very quickly become kind of mush with using them too much. But if you are very conservative with your use of them, they can be an awesome tool. I'm going to have to kind of rework through all of these little shapes here. Okay, well, hopefully that is kind of helpful for you to get going on your charcoal drawings. I still obviously have a lot of ways to go for my drawing, but I will keep going, and then hopefully next time I can show you either a finished piece or an almost finished piece. We'll see. If there are any more questions, please get those in quickly. Other than that, thank you so much for tuning in. Again, if you have questions later, you kind of think about it and you're like, oh, I wish I would have asked this. I'm here. I'm around. My name is Katie Liddiard, and you can look me up, and it's totally fine. But also, Artist Academy has ways that you can contact me as well. So thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate you being here. We will be back here again in December. And if you have any requests about something that we talk about, maybe I'll keep going on this drawing if you want to see it. I'll kind of work it a bit more and then do the finishing touches so you can kind of see that if you're interested. Other than that, thank you so much. And